This episode is brought to you by DistroKid. DistroKid is the easiest way for musicians to get their music into all the platforms: Amazon, Apple, Tidal, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, and more. Plus, you've got unlimited uploads, and the artist keeps 100% of what they make. But what I love most about DistroKid is their app. The design of it just makes the whole process so easy. Now you can be sure that you're doing everything you need to do to get your music out there. Go to distrokid.com to check it out or download the app now.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. Okay, the rearranging of the house, the sandbox, the tent, and the tumbling mats.
I was not happy with a lot of that because he took our living room, beautiful living room, and had it with the big blue mats, like a gym. Took away the couches and everything like that. It just is part of who the innocent Brian Wilson was. It was just part of his creativity, And mostly I would get a kick out of a lot of it.
I loved seeing it. I loved the sandbox.
Yeah, the sandbox, so did the cats.
Welcome to another episode of Discograffiti's wildly in-depth Beach Boys series and Your Dreams Come True, where Brian Wilson freaks like you and me get our chance to delve deep into the barely believable history and prodigious discography of my favorite band of all time, and also coincidentally the best, along with a slew of over 50 top-shelf guests, ranging from musicians inspired by their work, family members, documentary directors, songwriting collaborators, Beach Boys authors, producers, touring band members, and for good measure, some of the Beach Boys themselves. I'm your host, Dave Gebrow, and special thanks goes out to co-producers Chuck Granata, Dennis Dykin, and Mark Freed, without whom this series would not have happened. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the HONEYS! Along with our special guests, Marilyn Rutherford and Ginger Blake. Here's just a few of the many things that Marilyn and Ginger discuss in part 2 of our interview. The HONEYS' late 1960s singles and the slew of wonderful guest appearances on other artists' records, that's the director's cut only. How Marilyn felt about Brian's Smile-era decor in their Laurel Way home. Their thoughts on the Smile-era music, not to mention their ever-evolving lifestyle. What it was like being produced by Murry Wilson, the story behind American Spring, and the wonderful music that act produced, the HONEYS' 2 latter-day LPs, and how the ladies feel about Pet Sounds lyric collaborator Tony Asher. If you're a Beach Boys and HONEYS superfan like me, you'll want to turn this free version off right now and opt for the director's cut of this episode on our Patreon page, which features 20 additional minutes of essential material. And you can find it in our Patreon shop for mere pennies at patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Or better yet, just subscribe for access to the complete versions of all our shows. I recommend the Lieutenant tier at the very least, so you can access those director's cuts, because they include every last moment that was intended for these episodes. But it's actually the major tier that you want if you want it all. Discograffiti tells a story each week, and that story is 4 episodes long. and that's what you get as a major. In fact, as you'll see, the Monday bonus episodes are going to be most of the best stuff. But even if you're on the fence, just head over there, because it's finally free to become a basic member. And you don't want to miss being notified about every single one of these episodes. Because coming up, we got an interview with Lenny Waronker, Denny Tedesco, and his incredible new documentary, The Immediate Family, Mike Love, Al Jardine, Bruce Johnston, Tony Asher, Jimmy Webb, Kim Fowley, Phil Ramone, Paul Tanner, Larry Knechtel, Don Randy, Dominic Priori, Bob Irwin, Mark Lynette, Billy Strange, Hal Blaine, Larry Levine, the Four Freshmen's manager Bill Wagner, Carol Kay, plus an incredibly special Graham Nash deep dive, in which Graham himself rates and discusses everything he's ever released. That means solo, CSN, CSNY, CNN, and for good measure, Crosby's If I Could Only Remember My Name. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. And away we go then. My favorite album of all time is Smile. When I was 18, I discovered really hissy tapes of just the tracks without the vocals. And the creativity behind it sparked something in me that to this day, I think just as a collection of music is just as inspiring as art gets.
Right.
And for whatever it's worth, I always think, during that era of, I wonder how that affected Marilyn, how Marilyn felt about that. So I'm going to throw some things out. And by the way, Ginger, these are questions for you too. I'm just going to throw a few things out. If you want to skip, you can skip the question. But I'm just curious how you felt about these things, okay? The dinner parties.
They were fun. I cooked a lot. I did the cooking. I made the prime ribs. We had a big, long dining room table, and Brian used to invite people, Danny Hutton and Van Dyke and many, many other people, Mark Volman. But, it was kind of fun. Brian loved it, and so I would do it. He wanted me to do.
Yeah.
He wanted me to make this dinner, so I did. There's really nothing more to say about that than it was interesting and fun, and they were all having fun.
Yeah. Okay. The rearranging of the house, the sandbox, the tent, and the tumbling mats.
I was not happy with a lot of that. I was not happy with that. I gave him a lot of crap about that because he took our living room, beautiful living room, and had it with the big blue mats, like a gym, took away the couches and everything like that. The dining room, I didn't care so much about because he took the piano over there and then had a carpenter come in and build, it must have been 2 feet, maybe 2 feet.
Borders or whatever it is.
A fence, not a fence, to keep in the sand. And then they had delivered 8 tons of sand.
Do you have pictures of that?
I don't know.
I've seen him on I don't know, Facebook or Instagram or something. I suppose you could probably find it on one of those.
I don't think there's any public pictures.
No, I don't remember. I don't even know if I might have one somewhere. I don't know.
I remember seeing
one of these days I got to look through my stuff. But that, and then he went to the fabric store, and to a fabric store and found the little kids playing in the sand. So we had a tailor, forgot who we went to, and make curtains, where it kind of close. How you're in a hospital room and they have the curtains and they close it off when you're in there. Yeah. That was what he had done in the dining room. When he wanted to have it like that. Like get the feeling of sitting in the sand, playing the piano, and the kids playing on the piano. It just is part of who the innocent Brian Wilson was. It was interesting, but I never hated him or was mad at him for that.
Yeah. Because
it was just part of his creativity, I mean, everything he did like that. I mean, really didn't fight, what's the big deal, And mostly I would get a kick out of a lot of it.
Me too.
So far out.
I love seeing it. I love the sandbox.
Yeah, the sandbox, so did the cats.
Yeah.
Right. I heard that's the reason why it was dismantled, because it became a pet toilet.
Oh, geez. Yeah. God, it was, yeah, it just, no, you know what? It served its purpose.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at all that. It just served its purpose. And that's the way he was with everything that he did.
Right.
You know?
I heard that at one day during that period, he pitched you on turning your house into an organic vegetable store and selling veggies from a drive-through window at the rear of the house.
What? I've never
my
heard a story in my
God.
life.
Well, you guys had a garden, right? Vegetable garden?
No.
No? Okay.
It was a store. It was a,
You're
it was
talking
a
about the
health food
radiant
store.
radish.
No, I'm not talking about the
radiant
radiant radish.
We never had a vegetable garden.
Okay.
I don't know where these people get these ideas.
They create them.
What did you prefer? And maybe it's because of memories, maybe it's because of the house itself. Did you prefer 1448 Laurel Way or 10452 Bellagio Road?
Well, of course, Bellagio Road.
Bellagio, yeah.
Okay.
How could you compare the two, you know? I mean, they both were, Laurel Way was kind of interesting. It had beautiful views. We built a pool and we had a lot of fun in it. And those were the days when Brian was still, pretty
Natural.
with it, natural, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, and then, you know, Bel Air was a whole different phase.
Right.
It was a whole different phase of Brian and his own, whatever he was going through and his, you know.
I mean, right when you first got there, he had the house painted purple and attempted to get a giraffe.
Well,
Oh my God.
No, the giraffe I remember was at Laurel Way. Like he would say to me, "Let's get a giraffe," you know, very funny. And I won't tell you any more about that. But anyway, at Bellagio, he painted it magenta.
Right.
It was the exact magenta color. And so the Bel Air Association got mad at us and we got a letter that we had to change the color because we were ruining the reputation of Bel Air. So Murry he didn't want the association to be mad at us. And Murry knew about it. And he said, no, I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to send painters out there. What color do you want it? You know? And so Murray's the one who got it changed because Brian wouldn't change it. But Murry made us do it, which was great, you know, and it was a light yellow.
Yellow. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Light yellow.
Very pretty.
Yeah.
And the giraffe, he didn't press the giraffe issue.
No, the giraffe was a joke, you know.
Okay. Okay. And then Smile itself. You two ladies, are you a fan of the music that you've heard of the Smile sessions? I'm not talking about 2004 Brian Wilson Presents Smile. I'm talking about 66 and 67 Smile.
What I don't know what's in there. I get mixed up.
Heroes and Villains, Vegetables, Wonderful, Child, Father of the Man.
Yeah. Vegetables was my favorite.
Those were great. They were great productions. You know, Vegetables was a lot of fun in the studio. Paul McCartney came.
Yeah.
And that was fun, you know, and no, I loved Heroes and Villains. I loved, you know, I just thought it was so creative. And, you know, I mean, you know, you have to understand, I'm there with watching him create every single part on the piano every day, singing a new part of the song, and then it being put together and all that. And so in my mind, you know, most of those songs were from beginning to end.
Pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it is.
And it was fabulous. I mean, it was just as fulfilling to me in my way as it was to him. And also because he would also share at the end of making all this music. Of course, he always brought everything home on cassettes and we would sit there with earphones and listen to everything. So, you know, it was a big part of my life, a big part of my joy, you know?
Yeah. I do. I mean, but, you know, I'm curious during that time, Pet Sounds, Good Vibrations, into Smile, you know, are you cognizant that the possibility that this man is going to be looked back at eons from now as being mentioned in the same breath as the classical composers? Or is he just my husband, Brian?
No. I knew that he would be
a genius.
Way ahead of his time and a genius. I knew it. Everyone knew it. Everyone knew it. And, you know, I just knew it. Everyone wanted to be like him and learn from him. Everyone wanted to come over and just see what this man was all about and where it all came from.
And absorb.
Yeah, and try to take a little piece of it or whatever. You know, I mean, he just was so
dynamic.
Yeah. Well, no, you just couldn't figure out where it came from.
Yeah.
Everything that he did, where it came from. I mean, he was so creative and
he couldn't read music.
Yeah.
yeah.
Marilyn,
That's a classic.
Marilyn, tell me the things he learned from you. Because as a grounding force in his life, I am always thinking about you as part of this thing. I can never separate you from, the events that occurred there. And I know you brought a lot to the table. And in the introduction, when I referred to you as the true meaning of Patience of a Saint, I have no idea what it's like trying to keep a Peter Pan type personality in line while still supporting and fostering a personality like that.
You mean like, how did I feel about myself?
No. I know that he had to have learned just as much, if not more.
I don't know. I think just the stableness of me sometimes would really help him.
Keeping him calm.
Yeah, keeping him calm and just, watching me raise the kids and admiring that. I know he had that and told me that, and I think just being there for him taught him, that I was there for him. But anyway, that's like you're asking what I think Brian learned from me.
Yeah.
Ask him.
Yeah.
So by this point, Carney's in the picture, and you had that session in December of '68 with Murry. Before we talk about Come to Me and Let's Take a Holiday, I'm really curious because I know that obviously things didn't work out as Murry being producer with Brian. Did you have trepidation? Was there any trepidation with you going in and working with Murry, knowing that, the big falling out had happened with Brian during Help Me Rhonda?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
We were. It was interesting,
We loved Murry. We really loved Murry. He was very good.
We felt honored that Murry would want to work
exactly.
Yeah.
And asked us to work with him. We went, hey, he must like us. We felt honored
with Rick Henn. Murry and Rick Henn.
And by the way, Let's Take a Holiday is my favorite of those tracks. I love it.
I like that song too.
That was
so
I know. I don't think Marilyn liked too many of them. I don't think you liked Come to Me with, when
I didn't like it.
Yeah, no. Murry wrote that song. It was kind of like old fashioned.
Yeah. To be completely honest with you, it's probably the only song that you did in the 60s that I don't like.
What about I Think It's Going to Be All Right? That was horrible.
No, I don't think so. I think It's Going to Be All Right. I like that song.
Well, it was great if you were a soprano.
Yeah. I didn't like the writing style.
Yeah.
That was Rick Henn. Let's Take a Holiday.
It was my own personal thing. It wasn't anybody else's. But so I wasn't crazy about any of them.
But Rick Henn wrote Let's Take a Holiday, Mayor.
Yeah, he did. We're talking about Come to Me.
Any of them.
She didn't really. Yeah.
You know what it was? I didn't like the productions.
Right.
Yeah. And they did all that before we came aboard. So with the key range was wrong, we had to try somewhere to fit it in. And a lot of it was out of our key range as well. So that didn't make it any easier.
For us. They just had us come in and sing it.
Right. Yeah, I think the vocals actually are great as usual, but I think instrumentally it's a bit of a misfire.
It is. Yeah. It is. And the editing was atrocious on it.
But, so apparently, tell me if I'm mistaken.
But Murry really wanted to. He always used to say when we're at the session, can't wait to show this to Brian so he knows I can produce girls too.
Oh, is that what he'd say? I don't remember that.
Yeah, he'd always say that. I know that Brian will have to know that his dad can produce girls too.
Jeez, I don't remember that, Jim.
Yeah.
So what I heard though is that it inspired Brian to step up to the plate, thinking he could do better, and and that's what inspired Tonight You Belong to Me and Goodnight My Love. But initially, he had planned on having you do Country Air, Under the Boardwalk, and Chapel of Love.
Wow.
But instead...
I could say Country Air. We practiced that at the house, Country Air, but I don't think it ever came to fruition.
No, not at all.
It didn't.
And the other two, it was really Goodnight My Love and Tonight You Belong to Me. Those were the two songs he really, really wanted us to sing.
My God.
That was at Wally Heider's studio.
Ginger, your part at the end of Tonight You Belong to Me, the vamping that you do toward the end, like the last 30 seconds.
Yes.
Some of my favorite work that you've done.
Really?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Ay.
You know what I'm talking about, Marilyn?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so good. Those embellishments at the end.
She always fabulous at that. Fabulous.
Oh, so good.
Right.
Have you ever heard the songs? I'm taking this to a whole different place. Did you ever hear the songs that Diane and I worked on, like "It's Never Over" and all those songs?
When is that from? I don't think I have.
Oh my God! Then you don't have the whole
Right. And then I did Colony Motel and at the same studio.
Wait, when
From
was
the
that?
Sherman Brothers.
Was that 68?
No, this was Daniel. Where was I with Vince and all them? With Vince's studio in the Valley. There were a few songs that we did with them that were fabulous, and we had you come in.
This
It's
is
Never Over was one of Brian's
Marilyn,
favorites.
I came in to sing the song that Mike Love wrote.
This was Sweet Sunday.
Yeah,
No, the
that's-
ABBA song. She's Just Out to Get You.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
She's Got to Get You. That's right.
And I came in and sang a fourth
Oh,
part.
I love
Right. And then
that.
I did all that other
love
stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
So this Tonight You Belong to Me and Goodnight My Love truly is, in a lot of ways, it's like your final single of your first era as a group.
Right. Right.
And, you know, after that, Ginger, the amount of work that you did, do you mind if I go down this list, please?
If Marilyn doesn't mind.
I don't mind it. I don't
Okay.
mind.
So it's just an awe-inspiring, it's a staggering list. You're on Richard Harris's MacArthur Park, Tommy Rowe's Dizzy, Three Dog Nights Celebrate, Pacific Gas and Electric's Are You Ready? You're all over an incredible record by the brothers and sisters called Dylan's Gospel, which if you have not heard this, if you can imagine incredible gospel versions of Bob Dylan songs, it's an amazing record. Plus, you're all over Beggar's Banquet, right, by the Stones.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Are you on the whole record?
No, it's Let's Drink to the Hardworking People.
Salt of the Earth.
Salt of the Earth. Right.
Okay. And then unbelievably, you're on All the Tired Horses, which is one of the great What the F songs in music history.
You know, you're probably the only one who knows that. Nobody seems to know that I did that.
I love that song. I love it so much. And it's actually in the movie Blow.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I got to know that because I can get paid for it.
Yeah, the Johnny Depp movie.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Plus, you're on the Righteous Brothers Rock and Roll Heaven.
Yes.
You're on Rhinestone Cowboy. You're on Colt Cabana. You work with Neil Diamond, Cher, George Benson, the Commodores, Linda Ronstadt, Boz Scaggs, Herb Alpert, Eric Anderson, Bobby Blue Blend, Michelle Colombier, Papa John Creech, Pinky Friedman, Thelma Houston, Johnny Rivers, Evie Sands. I mean, you really, really had a wonderful career.
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Really amazing.
Appreciate that.
Oh, hi, I'm Dave Gebrow. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 5-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate weekly podcast for music obsessives thrive. But weekly wasn't enough for me, so I bumped it up to 4 shows a week. Becoming a subscriber to Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to hundreds of exclusive episodes. As a 2-show-per-week private, you get the weekly show by and for our Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a 3-show-a-week lieutenant, you'll get early release, ad-free, extended director's cuts of the main show. They're the shows as they were intended to be heard. Plus, you'll gain access to half the Patreon archive and the upcoming Beach Boys Behind the Mirror companion episodes, which will feature dozens of special guests from within the Beach Boys camp talking about and rating their music. But as a 4-show-per-week major, you'll be drowning in a flood of must-hear binge listening, because I'll be bombarding you with episodes about super cool bands that are too subterranean for free Fridays. It's like going to music college, but with a tuition that makes all kinds of sense. Plus, our entire Patreon archive is yours. Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off show, Queasy Listening, and the Private Press with Paul Major. And all that for the price of only a cup of coffee a week. Times are tough, you say? Fret not, because there's a $1 tier. Or you could just join as a basic member and buy episodes piecemeal from our Patreon shop. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Check out patreon.com/discograffiti to find the tier that's right for you. Once again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti. So before we segue here into spring for a minute, I just want to touch on Mike Connor.
Yes.
How long did you work with Mike up until? Did it end around 70 or did it keep going through the 70s and beyond?
Well, let's see. I met Mike Connor when I was 14 or 15 years old. And I met him through, as I say, with Carol Connors when she was in Annette Kleinbar, because they were looking for a new lead singer for the Teddy Bears. And Mike Connor knew me as the songwriter and thought that I should try out for it. I tried out for it, but it really wasn't in my bailiwick. It's not something that I wanted to pursue. I didn't have enough confidence to do anything like that. I like just music and singing with my cousins and then studio work. Just being a part of something rather than being the one that stood out.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did work with Mike end?
So Mike became our manager. When we recorded with Brian for Capitol Records, I was still under a pseudo contract, a titular contract with Mike Connor. It lasted forever. There was no expiration date. And so when we started working for Capitol, they would say, "Who's your agent? Do you have an agent? Anybody we can contact?" And yeah, Mike Connor. So Mike Connor was our manager forever. Just as long as we wanted to sing, Mike was our manager.
Is he still working for you?
No, Mike died.
How did Mike do?
Oh, Mike, he had a big stable of people. His big one was Bing Crosby and their sons, and Jeff Chandler, the famous actor. He had Jackie DeShannon.
How did he do for you? In other words, looking back at Mike's, his help that he gave you, do you feel like he was a great choice as a manager?
He tried in every way.
Yeah.
He varied, he just could only go as far as he could go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we never really faulted him for it because
he was there for us for everything.
Ginger, what I heard is that you and Diane sang back up on Peggy Lipton's cover of Now That Everything's Been Said that Lou Adler was producing.
No, that was Marilyn and Diane, not me.
I heard that Marilyn was pregnant with Wendy and didn't attend.
Well, I do have one.
I'm the one who sang the lead on it. I sang the lead on that song.
I'm saying that Peggy Lipton did a cover of it. So
I don't remember that.
What I had heard is that song got stuck in Diane's head and she pestered Lou Adler for a tape of it. And when the tape came, you worked on Now That Everything's Been Said, which, by the way, that City album by Carole King is so good, and people don't really know it. And that song is just incredible. Your version of it's terrific. That song was the beginning of spring, right?
Yeah. Yep, it was the beginning.
So you finished Now That Everything's Been Said, and once the track was complete, you got a green light on the making of an album because of Sherry Champion, right?
Yeah, she talked to people over at Liberty Records, yes.
Ginger, did you know at the outset that you wouldn't be involved with this?
Yes.
Okay, because you were in the thick of it in Vegas?
Well, I was with the Sugar Group, and then I don't know what year that was, but in 80, then I was part of a disco group called Danielle.
Danielle, yeah.
It was like the late 70s, 77, 78.
Yeah.
I was working every day in the studio. Every day.
Yeah, and Brian wanted to produce Diane and I.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah. So he says, let's just make an album because we had the studio at our house in Bel Air.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we could be up all hours of the night when the kids were sleeping or whatever.
Exactly.
And it was a joy. And we worked, and Brian asked our good friend, Brian met this guy and he became a friend of ours, David Sandler, who was very talented on the piano and all that.
Right.
And Brian said, will you help me co-produce this? And with Diane too. And Diane was a big part of that production. I mean, Diane.
Very creative that way.
Very creative.
And Stephen Desper too, right? Stephen was a big part.
He was the engineer.
Yeah.
He was the engineer.
From what I understand, the record was done in 3 batches. David Sandler, Rick Henn, who would come...
Not at all. Rick Henn was never involved in it.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm glad you're telling me this, because from what I understand, he assembled backing tracks.
No way.
Okay. And then obviously Brian.
Yeah, Brian, David, and Diane, and Steve was the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me I can't even imagine what it must have felt like after 10 years to finally have not only to have a record, but to have, I don't know, what are your thoughts on the record?
On Spring?
On Spring.
I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of songs that I hear myself going sharp and flat.
Oh, really?
Which kind of bugs me. But the purity of the songs, the productions, they were all made from the heart, from every one of us. I mean, we really put everything we had into it, and it was very, very satisfying because, there's nothing more satisfying to me other than, normal, my kids, my husband, blah, blah, blah. But, standing in front of the microphone and creating and singing.
Yeah.
That was my joy. Yeah. That was my joy.
You should hear her sing Superstar.
Oh, I have.
That's my favorite of all time.
Yeah. So my favorite on this is Sweet Mountain, but
that's great.
It's incredible.
The only connection to Rick Henn is his girlfriend, or was it his wife at the time? I can't remember. Was Daryl Dragon's sister.
Okay.
And Daryl Dragon's sister, and she knew French. So somehow Brian found out blah, 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 because he wanted to say those words in French. And so he had her write down the words and how to say them, the French part,
Okay.
Oh, that kind of thing. Kathy Dragon, that was her name. Kathy Dragon. So that was the only relation to Rick Henn that he had anything to do with Spring, nothing else.
Okay. I think this record's a masterpiece. I really do. There's a vibe on first of all, there's not a single bad song on the entire record. Plus, there's a vibe on this record that is very specific. And that's the tricky thing to do with an album, because you've recorded so many singles, but the whole album hangs together so beautifully. To me, it's like this homespun spiritual balm that always makes me feel better when I hear it. And it has, like you said, the word you used was purity.
I can't tell you how many people throughout the years, going to places and they bring the Spring album and they look at me and they go, this is my favorite album of all time. I mean, and I'm going, what? Out of everything that's out there, blah, 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 And then if I sit down and listen to it, which I haven't in years, but I should, I see it, I feel it. It was, and every song was totally different, just like you said.
Yeah.
There was nothing consistent. It just was sing a great song, put a great vocal on it.
Marilyn, I understand that Cherry Red pitched you on a reissue and you said no. Do you want this back out there? Cherry Red?
Who's Cherry Red?
Cherry Red is a reissue label. From what I heard, they pitched you on a reissue. Do you want this back out there? Because I can't believe there's no reissue of this out there and it's not on streaming.
No. Well, let's just put it this way. I have been approached, I'll just take a guess, maybe 10 times or more that people wanted to reissue it. And it is so precious to me, and they never offered me enough. Okay. And throughout all the years of being in this business and us not making money on anything.
Right,
mm-hmm.
Right.
Even Rhino pitched you too for it.
No, they didn't pitch me. I don't think they did for Spring. No. All these other, people like Light in the Attic and I can't tell you. I mean, I still get it. I still probably within the last couple of months, I've had someone email me
with
asking
good reason.
if I wanted to do it. And, it was such a precious thing. And I know what's going to happen with it. It's just going to get lost in the shuffle. And to take it out and to try to salvage it or whatever it is, it's like too much. My husband and I talk about it all the time. And people have offered us money, but, it's not enough. It's just not enough as what would take to do it and make it right. It's just not enough.
If this came out, I can envision exactly what it would be like. It would have this incredible book with it. Plus, it would have all the stuff you did in 73 in Iowa, and then in 77, all this work, because Spring wasn't just this record. In fact, my favorite Spring song is not on this record. It's Shying Away.
Isn't that great?
Is just it's unreal. And the most telling aspect of it is the sessions for this record coincided with Beach Boys recording Carl and the Passions, So Tough, and Brian was working more, I think, from what I understand, with you ladies than he was with the Beach Boys at the time, because it was so creatively fulfilling.
Right. Well, it's whatever suited his fancy at the time, whatever turned him on at the time, that's what he did. Just different times, different phases of his life,
Yeah.
Sometimes he was inspired, sometimes he wasn't.
Can I give you my capsule review? I was inspired to write a little capsule review for you on this, okay?
Okay.
After over 10 years of waiting in the wings for your turn at bat to enjoy creating an LP of your own, the Ravel sisters hit it way, way out of the park. There isn't a single bad song on this record, and in stark contrast to some of the more troubled gestations of the time that your male counterpart group was experiencing, this at least sounds like it experienced an effortless gestation. Every last vocal is dripping with conviction, and the whole thing hangs together as a fully rounded out musical statement. Spring is sweet as sugar, tender as a lullaby, and its ability to placate and calm makes it, at least for me, like I said before, a homespun spiritual balm for troubled times. It really is one of my favorite.
Whoa, what a wonderful thing. What a wonderful, thank you very, very much for that. And I agree with that. And my feelings on it are absolutely the same. It was very spiritual in many, many ways.
I love making the rounds, watching you on Old Grey Whistle Test with Diane. And, there's so much really cool promotional stuff from that time that was a real pleasure to dig into.
It was fun. It was great.
So in April 72, the home studio was taken apart for Holland. So there were no more albums created there. And I also understand that you were, and I may be wrong about this, that you were frustrated with the constant visits to your home from musicians and producers, and that you wanted it taken apart and moved out.
What year are you saying?
72.
How could it be taken apart in 72? I don't remember it being taken apart in 72. Okay.
What year did you go to Holland? I know when you went to Holland. It was 72 because Rainey was born in 72, and you wrote me from Holland, saying you can't wait to see his little face and all that stuff.
But wait a minute. How could it be taken apart if we did the spring album?
No, it was taken apart after the spring album.
I can't remember when exactly it was taken apart, but I don't remember it being taken apart that soon.
Also, this is the last full album that Steve Desper worked on with you guys, or Brian.
Well, there were other engineers that came to the house and worked too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Steve Desper. Whew. I wonder why I can't remember when it was taken apart, but I thought it was there for a lot longer. In fact, I have dreams of this.
Why do you feel like you have dreams about it?
I don't know. I always have dreams about that studio.
Good dreams or bad dreams?
Good dreams, good dreams. Being in the studio and this and that, and it was in the house, but I thought it was in there for a long time. But before we got separated or got divorced, it was still there for a long time. 72, they took it out? I can't remember it put in back the living room. See, that's my problem. I'm thinking of when do we put it back? And I don't remember that much about it. Maybe it was just a very hard time in my life, with Brian. I don't know.
72?
No, well, just a lot of things happening. A lot of it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that much about it. Isn't that the weirdest thing? It was my house.
Yeah. Well, your life has been eventful. So,
to say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least.
So you had to change your name to American Spring because of a UK-based band, and there was a third Spring, apparently.
Yeah.
And then in 1973, you went to Iowa to record some more material, and do I love this stuff. I love all this material. Tell me about the situation with David Sandler in Iowa in 1973.
Well, because, we had already done the spring album with Diane and I, and Brian, he didn't want to go. David knew these guys out in Iowa who had a studio on a farm in Otho, Iowa. And David said, come on, we got to make more records. So Diane and I went, and Brian said, go ahead, you have my blessing, go. And, we just recorded those few songs. It was great. It was just always so great to work with David. He was such a good friend.
And by the way, it should be mentioned, Spring is probably the best interpreters of Dennis Wilson's material. You've done a bunch of covers of Dennis's stuff. Fallen in Love is one, Slip On Through, Forever, and all of your covers of Dennis's stuff.
That's Diane. Diane saying, come on, we got to sing this. We got to sing that. Diane had a great ear. A great ear.
She produced some of the things too.
I know.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, she just, you have to understand my life was so busy and full with Brian and the children and raising it and keeping a household and running the Beach Boy thing. I don't know how you did it. Everything was so full. So when I would do something on the side, I would just do, they would say, hey, do this. We know you can do it. Okay, I'll go do that. I'll go do that. I'll go do that. It wasn't me pursuing going to anyone and saying, hey, let's go do this, you know? They came to me. They came to me because I had a very full life.
Yeah. Well, that must be nice to not have to self-generate and just, you know, to just go with the flow.
It was very nice, you know, and it was hard at the same time too.
You have a landline. I love it.
Yeah, we both do.
Can you believe it? What do I do? Do I wait? Hello? Hi, baby doll. I'm talking to David here. David, the one who gave you the interview the other day. We're on a Zoom.
Is that Carney?
Baby. I'll call you later. Okay, bye. She said it's important. It's good. Okay.
Is that Carney?
Carney.
Awesome. So from what I understood, Brian kept Spring busy in the studio for the next 6 or 7 years. What I read is that he would have you and Diane remake old hits like Honeycomb, Don't Be Cruel, Romeo and Juliet, and wrote new tunes with you like Do Ya and It's Like Heaven. Is that true or not true?
It's true. You know, it just things would pop into his head and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that. And, you know, like, for instance, Don't Be Cruel. He just thought that it would be kind of neat and with my sister Barbara to also sing on it, which was fun.
That is awesome. I'm so glad I know that she's part of that.
Oh, yeah. And Sweet Sunday, Barbara was part of that.
Yeah. I also want to put a spotlight down on a great song from a great album, Let's Put Our Hearts Together, you and Brian on The Beach Boys' Love You, which is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh.
It's so great, and it feels like there's so much of you on that record.
I know. Well, you know, Brian just said, hey, Mira, come on, I want you to sing this song with me. And we went to UCLA and took a couple of classes. I wanted to get my GED because I got married, you know, at 16.
Yeah.
So I got my GED and Brian and I would be in classes and he would write me love notes. You know, there's so many things about Brian that people just will never, ever know. Like a kid, like he wanted to be in high school and just write love notes and pass it down and, you know, and write it 100 times in a notebook. I love you, Marilyn. I love you, Marilyn. You know, stuff like that. I mean, anyway, that was the time of Let's Put Our Hearts Together. And when he asked me to sing it, you know, so I sang it. Yeah, I probably could have done it a lot better too, now that I think of it. But a lot of people, you know, I could have. You know, that's one thing about Brian. He would stop when he loved it. Like could say, oh no, I could do it better. Right, Ginger?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A lot of the time. But he said, no, I like it like this. This is fine. This is what I want. You know, it's a beautiful song, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. And I mean, there is an honesty about that record. The way that I see it is, you know, Pet Sounds, he did it with Tony Asher. People see Pet Sounds as being the most like Brian. Nobody knows Brian, but they're just thinking that this is him. But the Beach Boys Love You, you know, he wrote all those songs. I think Mike was involved a little, but that was basically Brian. And so it seems like that's probably the most like what Brian Wilson is, if I had to break it down musically.
Well, and on Pet Sounds, that is Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
Mostly, you know, and I don't have too many good things to say about the co-writer.
Tony.
Yeah, I don't have too many good things to say about him.
Not nice.
He just never respected me. Never walked in the house and said, hi, Marilyn. Nothing.
And
never.
said unkind things about her in interviews.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and but I can tell you one thing. He was lucky to be in there.
He certainly was.
I mean, what has he done since then? I
mean, he was an advertising copywriter that somehow crossed paths with him. Talk about luck of the draw.
Exactly. Now, you know, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm just saying that I had no relationship with him, and he wasn't very nice to me at all. He wasn't mean, but he just wasn't nice. You know, he wasn't friendly at all. You can bet Brian always gave away more to whoever he wrote with. He always gave away more than he should have. He was very fair with everybody.
Percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise. That's what I mean. You know, he just needed people to help fill it in. He had the idea and he just needed people to help him put it together or fill in what he needed.
This episode is brought to you in part by Bespoke LA. Located in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, Bespoke LA is the modern podcaster's dream come true. It's got 2 podcast pods available, one with audio only and the other with both audio and video. Just think, you can start your own podcast tomorrow without investing a single penny in equipment. What, you don't have experience editing? Don't even sweat it. For an additional fee, Bespoke LA can edit your podcast. Or not, it's entirely up to you. Rates start at $75 an hour with discounts if you book 4 sessions at once. Go to bespokela.com/podcast. That's BSPOKELA.com/podcast for more information or to book your time today. And be sure to tell them that Dave sent you for a one-time 25% discount. How about Van Dyke? Was Van Dyke nice?
Oh, Van Dyke was fabulous.
And Dury?
Oh, I love Dury.
Love Dury.
Yeah, Dury.
Yeah. Yep. Dury was great.
Such a sweet girl.
Because they were around a lot more than Tony Asher, right?
Tony Asher was only there at the Pet Sounds time, only.
Yeah.
Never other. He wasn't our friend.
Right. And then in 1983, 20 years, more than 20 years after you do your first single, the Honeys finally get a chance to record an album of all new material. I mean, how did that feel, number one? But number two, what made you decide to basically make a heavy metal album? That is the wildest
I know, isn't that funny?
decision.
Well, you've got to understand, we had Robbie Krieger play on the album. We had, some big players in there. And Burton Avieri from the Knack. Actually, our friend Richard Stevens gave the idea to Rhino Records to actually not have another compilation album, but actually produce a real album with original songs on it. So we met with
Howard and Richard
and
Richard
Foos. So we met with them, and we love the concept that they wanted to produce, to have a real first-class album, the way they thought about a first-class album.
The very beginning of Rhino.
Rhino's first producing. They had been in business for quite a while doing compilation
things. I
things.
didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. They had the record stores and everything before that. Marilyn, Diane, and I started writing a few songs in there that we thought were kind of cool, and they liked them. And then Mark Avnat, who owned Mad Dog Recording Studio, he was co-producer with Louis Necton. MTV was just really getting to be big. That was all rocking kind of songs. And we thought, well, we've never had a big hit singing like the Honeys. Why don't we try something else? But we had to throw it.
We could sing different things.
Right.
And nobody knew it.
We were capable of singing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like it as much as the next record. The next record is, to me, astounding. I just love...
What was the next record?
The next record, It's Like Heaven.
Oh, okay. So that's back to spring, even though it says the Honeys. But it's
you, right?
I sang on one song.
I thought you were on the whole thing.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Nope. They just put it out as the Honeys.
Oh, okay.
That was the Sweden album that I was referring to.
What I had read is that you went back to the studio and added your vocals.
I did.
But only to 1 or 2 songs?
She's Just Out to Get You.
Oh, okay. Oh, I wish you were on that record.
Well, I have to be honest about it.
I
can't take credit for it.
I like when you're on these things.
Oh, well, I like She's Just Out to Get You because it was a really great ABBA kind of sound.
Yeah.
I still wish it would come out.
It's one of the best Mike Love songs.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and produced by Diane.
And produced by Diane, of course.
Yeah.
And the Dennis Wilson one that I sang, that was probably the hardest song I ever had to sing.
Which one, Murry?
Slip On Through.
Oh.
Slip On Through.
Because you had to do those house falsettos.
Yeah, I had to do everything. It was really
that
tough.
Falsetto part.
It was fun because I felt like a rocker.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I think Dennis would have gone crazy over it. I honestly think that your version of it, I like it better than the Beach Boys version. I do. That slap bass is so wild. It adds so much to it.
Did you like Girls Are Vicious?
Yeah, I do.
That was so neat.
We wrote that one.
Yeah.
Ginger is so good on that.
Marilyn, that was you, right? Isn't it?
No, Ginger sang lead.
No, I mean, you wrote it, right?
Yes, we wrote the song.
Yeah.
The 3 of us wrote it. We wrote Running Away from Love, Girls Are Vicious, and we wrote the second half of Go Away Boy on that album.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But how about Don't Worry Baby, Marilyn singing Don't Worry Baby. Of course, you know the story with Brian playing Don't Worry Baby over and over and over.
Yeah.
Ginger, what are you talking about me singing Don't Worry Baby?
What do you mean, Don't Worry Baby? You saying was it Don't Worry Baby?
Yeah.
Be
No.
My Baby.
No,
Sorry,
Be My Baby. Be My
My baby. And that was not something I wanted to do, but
But
they
you
all
sounded great in it.
they made me do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do
Who
it.
made
We
you do
made
it?
you do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Ginger and Diane and all of them.
Yeah. Well, we put some good parts together on it too, so it was good.
I got
Great
to
track.
ask, speaking of Be My Baby, it makes me think of Shortening Bread and all these loops that Brian would get into. Being married to him, what was the song that you got the most sick of him playing?
Be My Baby, of course.
Yes,
Was it?
of course. Every day.
There was nothing to compare to that.
Carney says it's Shortening Bread.
That was fun. No, he just always fooled around with that. You know, he loved all those old songs. Surfing
Well,
Down Street.
the way that it became Ding Dang.
Yeah. Well, he had so many different things that he did all the time. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, just being around him and watching him do all this and so creative and oh my God, it never stopped. You know, it never stopped. He was either eating or playing the piano or sleeping.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why was It's Like Heaven only released in Sweden?
Who knows?
That album, just
Well,
as
because they had a budget. These guys were just a low budget. They had their own little label, and they just wanted to release that album.
It's Like Heaven needs to be re-released, just in the same way, if not more so, because a lot of people know American Spring. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people know about It's Like Heaven because of the Sweden-only release.
Yeah.
And every song is incredible on it.
It's Like Heaven was probably 98% Brian.
Okay. Well, I know Diane did Slip On Through. She did Sweet Sunday Kind of Love. She did She's Just Out to Get You. She did great work. Did she ever continue producing after this?
No.
No. Just the Honeys are our heart. They always were our heart. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you sang backup for the Smithereens. You did
Yes, we did.
Cut Flowers and Baby Be Good from 11.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Plus, Tell All the Fools off of Lake Music by Dennis Dyken with Bell Sound.
Right.
And of course, Wilson Phillips. And have there been any recordings since California Feelin' for Stevie?
Did you like California Feelin'?
I love it.
I know. We did too.
He thinks it's his favorite rendition of it, even more than the Beach Boys and Carl.
I was just talking with him today about it.
Oh, Stevie.
You were talking to Stevie?
Yeah.
We
Oh,
love him so much. He's part of our family.
he is.
I saw him on American Idol.
Oh,
I know.
I was sick with COVID.
Oh, bummer.
She would have
I
been
couldn't
there.
come.
Oh, bummer.
I was so upset.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question here. Ginger, you were portrayed on screen by Tamara Faye in the TV miniseries The Beach Boys and American Family, and Marilyn was portrayed by Erin Dark in Love and Mercy. What did Tamara and Erin get right, and what did they get really wrong?
We never smoked.
No, that's not true. I smoked.
Well, I did, but not then.
Oh.
Not then. We weren't 15 when we were smoking. Well, I was, but they had us at the club smoking. We didn't smoke at the Pandora's Box.
No, we didn't.
No, never.
Well, as far as Love and Mercy,
that's a joke.
The whole thing is,
It's
Is it fiction?
50%.
It's so disrespectful.
So wrong, and
so disrespectful.
The girl that portrayed me, she just did by a script, but the script wasn't right, and they had her saying things that I would never say. It was something else.
What do you think, as far as inaccuracies that have haunted you through your life? What's one or two that are just so wildly?
I'll tell you one right there with Love and Mercy. When she was lying in bed and Brian said, "Oh,
LSD."
Yeah, he said, "I just took
LSD."
Wait a minute, I gotta think, Ginger. I have to think of, because it haunted me, and it always will. And he was so out of it, and he just took LSD. And she looks at him and she goes, "Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy you did that." Well, it was the opposite. It was like me crying. Why did you do that? It was me crying. I was not happy.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
And so they portrayed it like I was so into it and all that kind of stuff, where it was a nightmare for me.
Yeah.
And Tony Asher took a swing at her for that too.
Did he?
Yeah.
I know that the people around at the time I believe you called them drainers.
The Drainers, yeah.
Lauren Schwartz, and Michael
Linda
Vossi.
Schwartz. And see, that's where Brian met Tony, from Lauren Schwartz.
Yeah, yeah,
At one of his parties. That's where Brian met him.
yeah.
You know, stoners. You have to understand, by then I was 17. It was really hard, you know?
Yeah.
It was really hard. He'd just come home and introduced to all these drugs, and little old Marilyn from
Dear Benita.
Sierra Bonita knew nothing. My parents never drank. They only smoked cigarettes. They did nothing else. And I never even heard of a drug.
Right.
You know?
You know, what's wild is that famous picture when Brian came back, he was at the airport and he asked you to assemble everybody. Within a few months, all those people were out of his life except for you.
Well, not all those people. I have that thing right in front of me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have that picture.
Is that with Carol Botnick in it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are still in our lives.
Okay. I know a lot of people, though, were, they dropped off.
Some of them.
One by
some
one.
of them.
Mark Bowman.
But there's,
Do you keep in touch with Mark?
Not for many years. Is he still living? Mark's still living?
He is, but he may have dementia from what I hear.
Oh, no, not for many years. I loved Mark. Mark was great. And then David Anderley, then Dean, and Daniel and I were just at Danny and Lori's house for dinner a few months ago. They're great.
Does David Anderley fall in the drainer category? Or?
No.
No? Okay.
Even though some of these people were around, okay, like I'm looking at this, like David and Mark. Of course, Dean will always be a dear, dear friend.
for sure.
That Michael Vossi, no, never seen him again, or his girlfriend, or Jules at the bottom, the writer. But David Anderley, of course, Danny, these were people who really loved Brian and respected him, you know. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't involved with drugs with him, but if they were watching him and taking care of him, you know. And I'm not saying they were or they won't, but there had to be a little bit of that because that's just what was happening in those days.
How about David Oppenheim?
I don't remember him.
He did that Inside Pop thing that aired, the Leonard Bernstein piece. He was a TV producer. He would come to...
I remember Brian doing the Surf's Up on that, yeah.
Yeah. So he was the producer of that special, and he would come to your dinner parties. And
He would? I don't remember him.
Yeah, he was around, probably not like the other guys, because it seems like people like Michael Vossi were just trailing Brian.
Yeah.
But David Oppenheim had work he had to do, so he actually had one.
You know what? I'd have to see a picture of him because I don't remember him.
He passed away, but he did that special.
Oh, did he? That was such, Brian singing that song on there, I could die.
Yeah.
I said to myself, oh my God, finally, here's Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah.
Appreciating who this man is, how he can sing, what his soul is all about. I mean, that he really did. He appreciated who Brian Wilson was and so unique. You know what I mean?
When that aired, it came out about a month before he canceled Smile.
Wow.
Look, I know you had to get through a lot. You had to find your way through quite an intense maze to get to this point in life where you can look at all these people and this life and world that you've created that you can be this proud of.
Well, you know what? I am. And I have Brian, as much as we went through and blah, 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 I'm so grateful for him because he's given me the greatest life. Even though it was tough and there were a lot of bad memories, there were also a lot of good memories, but I wouldn't be who I am today and wouldn't have what I have today and my family and everybody I love. Brian made that possible for me too. Gave me a greatest life.
Knowing what you know, I know the answer to this question, but I have to ask it. Knowing what you know now and having been through what you experienced, would you still have accepted Ginger's invitation?
Yes, we're in the middle of an interview, the Honeys interview, so I can't talk to you. Okay. I got to go back to the interview.
Would you still have accepted Ginger's invitation to accompany her back to Pandora's Box back in October 16th?
I know.
Or would you have stayed in that night?
I was so happy that I
No,
went.
she would have come. Oh, absolutely.
I would have
We
come.
did everything together.
Yep, we did. And
We did everything together. when I saw that.
I don't mean would she have come with you. Of course she would have. I'm just saying, knowing what that decision prompted in her life,
turning
would you have accepted that invitation to go out, or would you have stayed in that night?
I would have accepted going out, not knowing what I was getting into.
Pokey, you knew you'd be safe with me.
It was just fun to get out of the house. But it was music. It was what we loved.
You knew you'd be safe with me. Listen, I taught her how to drive.
She taught me everything.
I taught her everything. She's my baby.
Isn't it amazing, though? I mean, just one simple decision that you probably don't think twice
about anything in life, really.
I'll come out with you to the club, and then all these years later, it begat your whole life.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what all of our lives are about. We don't know what's in store for us.
No.
We all have our own purpose, or
just like how you met your wife.
It's interesting because we are so blessed that we got to have a life of music. Our families, and everything all revolves around music. And it hasn't stopped, and it's now 3 generations, 4 generations, whatever.
Right.
We are so blessed to have this.
Yeah.
And I have to throw in my little 2 cents for my son.
Yes.
My son Rainey is a brilliant composer. He writes music for many TV shows and movies and commercials, and he's very, very successful.
That's great.
So the music lives on. Yeah.
Just our families.
So with regard to the Honeys and or Spring, how do you see your legacy? How do you hope to be remembered? And do you even care how you're seen years and years down the line? What do you want people to take away from the legacy of the Honeys?
Well, that we were the first girl surfers who couldn't surf.
But we had an original, sweet, pure sound, and that people who came up to us over the years and wrote us that our music mattered to them. I think that was really important.
Right.
That our music, we've had people that have come up to us and said, we were in the darkest days until we would listen to your music and you'd lift us up.
Yeah, when people come up to us, it's just very, very fulfilling, Mm-hmm. When you don't make it successfully financially by yourself or whatever, but you're known as a great I don't know why I use this word, underground.
Yeah.
That it means a lot because it's there.
Yeah.
And so many people know it and most people don't.
It adds a lot to my life and I listen to it a lot.
Yeah.
I can't wait to air this because, the people who may know about the Beach Boys and may not know about the Honeys except for Be True to Your School or a couple other songs are going to have a door opened into this whole other universe.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your life in music. And I hope, that although there were some inaccuracies, it wasn't my fault. I only read what I read.
We know, believe me, we know.
Hopefully we set the record straight. And honestly, I really have a lot of respect for the two of you. For having lived through a very difficult time in history, but to have been able to make your own way and do your own thing and have so much to show for it.
Yes, thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank Dennis for bringing us all together.
Yes, we appreciate it. Hope one day we'll meet in person.
All right, that about does it. Stay tuned because next week brings upon us part 1 of my epic interview with Graham Nash about the origins of Crosby, Stills, and Nash and that stunning debut album. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside just like you and I. Then come Monday, the major tier gets a very special treat. And man, do I mean special. We kick off the Chuck Granata Pet Sounds interview series at the very beginning. It's Chuck's conversation with one of Brian Wilson's most towering influences, Ross Barber of the Four Freshmen. His father, Murry, took Brian to see the legendary Harmony group when he was 14 years old, and he got the opportunity to meet them. The concert and that meeting had a profound effect on young Brian, who said, "My voice was shivering as I was talking to them. I was so in awe of them. It was one of the biggest moments of my life. Their song, It's a Blue World, made me cry. I learned to make 4-part harmonies from the Four Freshmen." Russ passed away back in 2011, which makes this posthumously released interview a particularly priceless buried treasure. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Monday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. Don't miss it, or you'll only be getting part of the story. And then on Wednesday, the Lieutenant tier gets their early release, ad-free, super extended director's cut of part 1 of my epic interview with Graham Nash. It's the episode as it was truly intended to be heard, with all the essentials left intact. And then come Friday, everybody else gets to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Marilyn Rutherford, Ginger Blake, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, Jay Schultz, Bespoke LA, my mom, my dad, Joe Kennedy for that killer new theme song, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator, and much, much more. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the classic rock and roll from the 1960s is to go to the Beach Boys Season 1, Catch a Wave, 1961 to 1964, from episode 189 on, the Righteous Brothers Bill Medley interview, that's 181 and 182, my interview with the Free Design, that's 160 to 162, my epic interview with the Mamas and Papas Michelle Phillips, that's 141 to 159, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's 137, my 12-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander from the Association, that's 109 to 113, Vashti Bunyan reading her entire output, that's 103 to 104, Sergio Diaz from Os Mutantes, that's 86 and 87, Bert Summer, that's 83 and 84, Sweetwater is episode 79, a tribute to David Crosby, 77 and 78, Andrew Tuttle rates the Monks, 74, Jim Florentine on Black Sabbath is 64 to 68, Lou Barlow on the Zombies is 59 and 60, Marvin Gaye biographer David Ritz rates Marvin Gaye, that's 45 to 47. Blind Faith is 43. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, it's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest rates the band is 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rates the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy rates David Axelrod as 17. Badfinger is 16. The Bee Gees is 10 and 11. Sly and the Family Stone is 5, 6, and 7. And Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, July 25th, we're coming at you with part 1 of my epic interview with Graham Nash. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!